Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I'm really glad you're joining us because today we have to break down a highly complex, deeply polarized, and honestly, very fast-moving international incident. We're looking at the recent interception of the global Samud flotilla and the massive legal and diplomatic firestorm that's happened since. Specifically, we're focusing on how Israel extends the detention of Gaza flotilla activists amid torture allegations. We're going to look closely at the facts, the claims from both sides, and the starkly opposing viewpoints right from our source material. So, let's just jump straight in.
So here's a question to frame this whole thing for us. Where do international waters end and national security begin? This right here is the absolute core clash of this entire episode. On one side, you have the assertion of international maritime law and the right to civilian protest on the open ocean. But then, on the other side, you have a sovereign nation enforcing a strict military blockade during an active conflict. Just keep that inherent tension in mind as we walk through how this all unfolded.
Okay, to understand how we got here, we really need some context. The global Samud flotilla was this massive maritime coalition. We're talking vessels carrying hundreds of civilian activists, parliamentarians, journalists, and human rights defenders from over 40 different countries. Now, their stated aim? They wanted to deliver life-saving humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, and they fully intended to break the Israeli naval blockade in the process. But, as you might have guessed, they didn't make it. The convoy was intercepted by the Israeli Navy. Let's walk through exactly how fast this went down. In April 2026, the flotilla departs from ports in Spain and Italy, making its way across the Mediterranean. Fast forward to early Thursday morning. They are about 600 miles away from Gaza when the Israeli Navy intercepts them. Now, to put that into perspective, 600 miles is an incredibly vast distance, placing them way out into international waters, far beyond standard territorial limits. By the weekend, Friday through Sunday, we see mass deportations. Around 175 activists are taken off, processed, and quickly transported to Greece so they can be sent back to their home countries. A pretty swift end to the mission for most of them, right? But not for everyone.
Section 1. The detainees, held back from deportation. So who actually got left behind? Two of the organizers were detained and transferred back to Israel, Saif Abou-Kashek and Thiago Avila. Now, Avila is a Brazilian national. Abou-Kashek holds both Spanish and Swedish citizenship, but crucially, he also holds Palestinian identity documents. According to the flotilla organizers, this dual status puts Abou-Kashek in a really unique, actually unprecedented legal context compared to past flotillas, because Israeli authorities could potentially try him just as they would any Palestinian.
Section 2. The torture allegations.
Now we need to look at the specific and incredibly serious allegations of abuse being reported by Adala, the legal center representing these two men. According to their lawyers, Avila was dragged face down and beaten so severely that he literally passed out twice. They report he suffered temporary blindness and severe swelling in his left eye, but was denied medical treatment. He also claims that soldiers threatened to throw him overboard and explicitly threatened his family. As for Abou-Kashek, his lawyers state he was forced to lie face down on the floor of a warship for 2 straight days, blindfolded, with his hands bound tightly behind his back.
The men were eventually transported to Shikma prison in Ashkelon, Israel, where they were placed in windowless solitary confinement. In protest of these conditions and their overall detention, both men have initiated a hunger strike. In fact, Avila is refusing to accept his own release unless Abou-Kashek is freed alongside him. Their legal team is fiercely arguing that this treatment, the isolation, the prolonged blindfolding, the alleged beatings, constitutes a grave violation of international law.
You know, this really highlights the massive divide in how this whole event is being characterized. It's almost like a split screen. On one side, the activists and human rights groups state emphatically that their sole goal was a peaceful, civilian, humanitarian aid mission to deliver supplies. But on the exact opposite side, Israel's perspective is entirely different. They view this flotilla as a genuine national security threat, and they're investigating the organizers for assisting the enemy and having terrorist affiliations. Two completely contradictory narratives stemming from the exact same event.
Section 3. Israel's security allegations.
So, what exactly are the Israeli authorities claiming here? Well, the activists report being interrogated by Israel's Shin Bet security service, and Avila noted he was told Mossad would be interrogating him too. The Israeli state attorney has presented a list of suspected offenses, and a huge piece of their argument relies on alleged connections to the PCPA, that's the Popular Conference for Palestinians Abroad. Washington has actually sanctioned this group, accusing it of acting clandestinely on behalf of Hamas. Because of this, Israel officially alleges the men were providing services to a terrorist organization and assisting the enemy during wartime. It is absolutely crucial to note, however, that as of the source reporting, no formal charges have actually been filed against either man.
Which brings us to a really critical number here. 2. An Ashkelon magistrate's court judge extended the detention of both men by a further 2 days to allow for continued interrogation. The defense lawyers, however, are completely rejecting this proceeding. They argue that applying domestic Israeli security offenses to the actions of foreign nationals operating out in international waters is just fundamentally flawed and illegal. They are aggressively challenging the state's actual jurisdiction to hold these men at all.
Section 4. International Diplomatic Fallout.
As you'd expect, this specific detention is creating a massive ripple effect across the globe. Spain, who is representing Abu Kashek, is demanding his immediate release, and their prime minister has explicitly labeled the event an illegal abduction. Amnesty International is pointing straight to the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, declaring the interception a flagrant breach of international law. Meanwhile, Israel is standing firm. They completely reject the abuse claims, calling them baseless allegations and brazen lies, and they insist their naval blockade is legally justified, maintaining that these activists are genuine national security threats.
The diplomatic friction is really intense, and it's probably best summed up by José Manuel Albares, the Spanish foreign minister. He publicly stated the arrest was made, quote, outside the jurisdiction of Israel. Of course, it is a kidnapping. With both Spain and Brazil now aggressively demanding the immediate return of their citizens, this maritime interception has effectively morphed into a super high-stakes diplomatic standoff between sovereign nations.
So that brings us right back to where we started, but obviously with a much deeper understanding of the facts from all sides. When a military blockade meets international civilian protest, whose laws actually govern the open sea? What you should really take away from this is that we aren't just looking at a single flotilla, or just 2 detained men. We are looking at massive, unresolved geopolitical implications that affect global maritime law, human rights, and national defense. As this unprecedented legal and diplomatic clash continues to unfold, the answer to that question might fundamentally reshape how the world operates on the open waters. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep asking questions, and we will see you next time.